They are gathering at the center of the city. That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. We're talking the Polar Express. Hit it. It was 1985. Kenner's Mask toy line debuted. The Unabomber killed his first victim. The Cure released their Head on the Door album. And a young boy takes a train to visit Santa and receive an incredible gift. I'm your host, Jerry D, with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Joining me is a very special guest. You'll know him as one of the hosts of the Way Awesome Lit for Christmas podcast, Marty Achatz. Marty, how's it going?
It's going great. You know, I got my hot chocolate with a couple shots of butterscotch schnapps. I'm ready to go.
Ooh, that sounds delicious, actually. I don't think I've ever had a butterscotch hot chocolate.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. Yeah, I was going in between cinnamon and butterscotch, and butterscotch seemed like the right choice tonight.
I understand. Yeah, normally, being Hispanic, we had cinnamon and then like some cayenne or chipotle, something a little, for a little heat. So the cinnamon's what I'm mostly used to. But whenever I get to try something new, I really enjoy that.
You know what? A little butterscotch schnapps in here. I mean, I think I put 2 shots and it's really good. But I do have like Fireball whiskey, which is cinnamon, which is fantastic as well too. So
ideas.
There you go. It's like I go to my cupboard and I'm like, wow, what should I use?
Nice. Yeah, I'm a sucker for hot chocolate of any form. So yeah, I definitely got to try these out. The trick will be doing it when the kids are asleep. So.
Well, yeah, that's always the trick. My son, when I'm recording actually an episode of Lit for Christmas, and he I usually try to do it late at night when he's like almost ready to go to bed, but he'll come in and he'll just see me there after 2 drinks, and he's like, he just shakes his head at me and goes, no, whatever. That's why I'm not cool, because he sees me doing it. So
I understand. I definitely understand. I think my kids are young enough right now that there's a whole mystique about the recording, process, and they're just like, ooh, can I be on the show? So I'm at that kind of nice stage. The downside is they're also young enough that they have to go to bed early, and so I usually have to record later just to make sure that they're asleep.
Yeah. My son is like 12, so he's been pushing it. Now it's like 10:30 and 11 o'clock, and I'm pretty soon it's going to be like 11:30. So, I've given up trying to get him in bed before I do anything like this. It's just,
Well, and especially the summer's coming up as well.
Yeah, exactly. And, I in the UP right now, it's still light out, which is 9 o'clock right now, which is amazing. It's been getting lighter and lighter and lighter, but we did have snow yesterday morning.
Nice.
So we had
cool.
inch of snow on the ground. I mean, it comes in the morning and then by like noon, it's gone. But yeah, May sort of feels like a burr month. It really does.
See, that's crazy to me because I'm from South Texas originally. So, I mean, by this time we're already in like the 90s. Sometimes we're pushing 100. So, I mean, that blows my mind. That's amazing.
I actually remembered summers where we got snow in like June. So
that's so cool. That's like super cool. But speaking of snow, the Polar Express. So what's your history with it, or what are your general thoughts on the Polar Express?
I remember, I graduated from high school in 1985, which is when the book came out. It wasn't like really part of my childhood, but my daughter was born in the year 2000. And one of the books that we got, and she was born December 5th. So like
Nice.
one of the things that we got that Christmas was a copy of the Polar Express. And so I mean, and I remember holding her on Christmas night and reading her the Polar Express as she was sleeping. Of course, she, wasn't really enjoying it, but but having her in my arms and holding and reading that book to her. And so it was like this tradition. I mean, and it became one of her go-to books, not just at Christmas,
Nice.
all year long. So the Polar Express has been a part of her life for a very long time. And then when the movie came out, I mean, that was like, she loved it, in 2004. Yeah. I think that was her first movie, actually. 2004. Wow. Yeah. So
that's cool. I know my parents, when I was 4, took me to see Gremlins and Ghostbusters, and they both scared me. So.
Gremlins is a little different feel than Polar Express, I'll tell you.
Just a bit.
Although I don't know, those creepy elves at the end of the Polar Express, I'm telling you, they got that kind of gremlin feel to them.
Well, the whole thing, I mean, I like the movie, I do. But it's, especially compared to like the CG now, I mean, it's just, it's kind of primitive, and there's just that uncanny valley kind of.
I totally get that. I mean, you look at it and it's, when that kid starts moving at the beginning, I mean, they really replicate Chris Van Allsburg's painting, his illustrations really well in the book. But I mean, there is that kind of weirdness when you're watching it, but it's never really bothered me. And my daughter just ate it up. So
I'm sure my kids like it too. And I mean, I like it. It's one thing that they had to do was really pad out the movie, because the book is pretty short. So there's a lot of little adventures there that, or misadventures if you want. But I like the way that they incorporated it in kind of a seamless manner.
They really did. I mean, they've got like actual quotes from the book. I mean, my family is going to be so glad when I'm done recording this, because I've been watching this movie like for the last week. I think I watched it 5 times today. So they're going to be like, oh, please. Even my daughter might be like, okay, it's time to take a rest. It's from done.
Let's take a break. Yeah.
but I mean, you're listening to it, and then Tom Hanks' narration. I mean, he's using actual quotes and lines from the book itself. So I mean, they really did. Although the one thing that hobo, I'm not sure about that.
That was odd,
in the movie. It's just it's just but like you said, they had to pad it and make it a little bit longer. But I mean, he's kind of a cool addition, but I don't understand him. But
I mean, I guess he's an angel. They kind of allude to the fact that he's an angel. But hobo, I mean, hobo, I suppose you can kind of
see it sort of, and there's this whole thing about like in the movie with Flat Top Tunnel, where he's got to jump into the thing before his head gets sheared off or something like that.
There's a lot of bits that are kind of suspenseful in the movie, actually.
They really are, and I mean, we might get into it later, but I mean, the hobo itself, he was there's an explanation for him. There was a song that the two, the Smokey and Steamer, the two that run the train, they were supposed to sing it. And in that song told the story of this hobo.
Really? I didn't know that.
So they tell the story of who that hobo is. So you get that origin story, and it's actually, you can find it on the internet. And watch it, but Michael Jeter was the one that did the song. Nice. I think this was his last movie before he passed away. And the song itself, like, literally is this kind of weird ghost story about how this hobo was on the Polar Express, and literally Flat Top Tunnel is how he died. Oh, no. So so that whole, it's creepy.
Little scar there. I could see why they cut it. Yeah.
So I saw that like they had this interview with the producer, and the producer says something like, it just kind of slowed the movie down. And I'm like, well, not only that, but it's like scarring for little children. Yeah.
Wow, that's a trip. It's funny that his justification for it's like, nah, I think that might be a little too much there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was an interesting addition. I enjoyed the engineers. I thought that was really well done as well. And of course, they had to fill out all the little children's parts.
Yeah.
And of course, and we'll get into it. But that one kid with the glasses, oh man, he was annoying.
Oh my, he's the most irritating child. I'm not for bullying or anything, but that kid, I would understand if that kid was bullied, because let me tell you, he's just the most irritating. And at the end, he sort of like becomes part of their group in that, but I don't know. He's something else.
I don't know why, but I sometimes get the feeling I was like that as a child too. So
I might have been like that too. It's like, hey, I don't think I was into trains, but
I wasn't into trains.
You get me talking about like what was I in? I really love these. Like, these were before the Transformers. I had these things called the Micronauts.
Micronauts, yeah.
And you remember them?
I do remember them. Yeah, those things were awesome.
Yeah, and if you got me talking about Micronauts, I probably would have been that know-it-all kid that you would have wanted to lock in a room and forget. So.
Yeah. But I guess we can go ahead and get into it. Let's talk about the book first, because the book is basically the summary, if you will, of the movie.
Absolutely, yeah.
Essentially, Christmas Eve, a boy who kind of is struggling with his belief in Santa hears train outside, and he boards it, and it takes him to go see Santa, and he gets a nice bell that rings, and if you really believe, and eventually he's the only one that can believe it, and that's the nutshell version of it.
that pretty much is the whole book, really. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a magical book to me. I mean, just looking at those illustrations are just so gorgeous, and Chris von Allsburg. I mean, he's an artist primarily, but I mean, even his language, the words that he uses are, it's almost like a poem when you read it, which is absolutely gorgeous.
It is, and I'm glad you mentioned that he was an artist, because I believe it won a Caldecott Award.
It did, yeah. I think it was his second Caldecott. He published 3 books. He published, his first book was, I believe, The Garden of Abdul Ghazazi. And he won like a Caldecott honor award, which is not really a Caldecott award. But then the next book was Jumanji, and he won a Caldecott for that, which well deserved.
Yes.
And then he wrote The Polar Express, and he won a Caldecott. So it's like, his first 3 books, he's like winning all these awards. So and rightfully so. I mean, he's a beautiful, beautiful artist, although he started out as a sculptor, which is really strange. So
that's kind of, I suppose Michelangelo did it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny. I don't know if you read like his, he sort of has this origin story as an artist, where he was 17 years old, and he was from Grand Rapids, and they sent an admissions officer from UM to his high school. And so he didn't know what he wanted to do. And so he's filling out this thing, and he goes into the meeting with the admissions officer, and he hadn't picked out a major. And the guy goes, well, what do you want to do? And he says, well, he's looking at all the different colleges, and he says, well, what's this A&D? And the guy goes, well, that's architecture and design. And he was like, oh, well, I guess that's what I'll do. And the guy goes, well, you haven't taken any art classes. So what does he do? What every 17-year-old kid does, he lies. And he says, well, that's because I was so advanced, and I was taking private art lessons.
Oh, no.
And the guy goes, wow, that's really impressive. And So he ends up going to U of M, never taken an art class in his life, and he ends up at U of M and their art and design.
That's cool, though.
He lied his way in, but look where it got him.
So. Moral of the story, kids: if you don't know what you're doing, just lie your way in.
Exactly. It really worked for him. It really did.
That's so cool. But yeah, his artwork is beautiful, and I'm glad you brought up his word choice, and all that, because you're right, it is kind of poetic. I mean, here's a little bit here. Okay, so it starts off, on Christmas Eve many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never hear, the ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. I mean, it just it just sets the tone right away, and it's great. I love it.
I mean, yeah, absolutely, and it just sort of relaxes you when you and yeah, I mean, the whole book reads like that, and I mean, it's just beautiful. I've always thought of it as a poem, but I think children's books are more poems than they are like prose. So
that's true. Yeah. A lot of times you'll have some stanzas with some rhyming couplets, things like that. In this case, it's I like it better because it's not rhyming couplets.
I agree. Yeah.
There's something, I like it. I love Dr. Seuss. I love all that stuff, but there's something to an actual words and sentence structure
exactly
that you appreciate.
I teach poetry, and I'm a poet. So I love prose poems, though, where primarily it's like paragraph. It's in paragraph form, but the language is so condensed and so full of image that it approaches poetry. So let me read you one of my favorite passages. I love this. I love this passage. It's where they're approaching the North Pole, and he says, "The mountains turned into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." That's
cool. I love that juxtaposition, the barren desert of snow or of ice. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's just, he's amazing. I think Chris Van Allsburg is amazing on so many levels, but even his prose and his writing it's really cool.
Yeah, some people are just very talented. And I like this book. I'm kind of sad because this book passed me by when I was growing up. I knew of it. I just I didn't realize it was about Christmas. Otherwise, I would have read it. I saw the cover. I wasn't huge into trains. Like if it said the Christmas Express or the Santa Express or something like that, I probably would have been more inclined to read it. But I heard the Polar Express, and I was like, that's okay. Next. And so
a book about trains, who needs that?
Exactly. It's like, no thanks. So it wasn't really until the movie came out that I thought, okay, well, this, let me check it out. So I saw the movie and I thought, well, that was pretty good. And so then I grabbed the book and it was not bad at all. I really enjoyed the book.
I sort of struggle between which I like better, the movie or the book, which kind of is hard for me because I'm a writer, so I usually like the book more than the movie, but the movie is so much more than the book is too. So
yeah, it's a children's book, so it's quite condensed story-wise. The plot is pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of really any conflict, I suppose. And the movie, there's lots of conflict.
There is. Well, even the little boy in the movie is not sure if Santa is real, but the boy in the book is still believing even at the beginning. So there's no struggle with him of does Santa exist or not. He's right there. So which is good, because if someone shows up in a train on Christmas Eve in the middle of your yard and says, "Hey, get on, we're going to see Santa Claus," you better believe, or else you're accepting a ride from a weirdo on a train,
Yeah, exactly. First of all, how would a train even even appear in your yard? But yeah, you got to believe. You got to. And
You have to.
It's so funny that he's in the movie. You're right. I didn't really think about it that way, but it's true. Like, why wouldn't he if this just train appears? He's like, we're gonna go see Santa, and I mean, there's no real tracks that that you can see of in your yards.
And nobody's around. Your parents are in bed, and this guy's saying, "Hey, hop on!" And then he goes onto the train, and there's all these other little children on the train. And it's like, okay, are we going to see Santa Claus, or have we just been abducted or something?
Hopefully, the former and not the latter.
Exactly.
Oh man. Yeah, it's really good. It's very atmospheric. But they get into a lot more adventures. And it's like I said, because they had to really pad out the story. Because if they were just to do the story, I mean, it would take like 10 minutes maybe tops.
Yeah.
So they have the bit with the hobo, the bit where he loses the girl's ticket,
the ticket,
all those other bits. I mean, and I applaud the screenwriter for padding it out. So you're right. Some of his choices were a little odd.
And
it does seem like there was just a lot of okay, what other calamity can befall these children?
Yeah. At points, it's like Robert Zemeckis. Well, I love Robert Zemeckis as a director, but Robert Zemeckis has this tendency, especially if he's like knows it's going to be 3D, to add these like weird side tracks, where it's like you can tell he just really wants to make use of that 3D. And so suddenly, like, we're following a ticket for 5 minutes as it's like blowing and being chased by wolves and eaten by eagles and stuff. And I'm like, okay, they didn't think that song about the hobo like forwarded the plot, but yet we have a 5-minute sequence where we're chasing a ticket that was lost. So
you're right about that, because he did the same thing in the Christmas Carol with the Ghost of Christmas Future, that weird carriage chase.
I love that version of the Christmas Carol. But when it got to that point where we see little itty bitty Scrooge in the sewers being chased by rats and stuff, I'm like, why is this even here?
That was pretty unnecessary. And you're right. I mean, same thing. I love Robert Zemeckis as well. I mean, who doesn't? He's done so many great things.
Oh yeah.
But that was pretty unnecessary. And same thing with the ticket. I mean, there was no reason to follow it all that time. But I mean, I guess it had to somehow end up back in the vans.
Well, okay, and here's I will defend it artistically. This is the reason why they did it, because there's that one illustration in the book which has these wolves that are looking at the train as it's going by.
Yes.
And when you get to that point in the movie where the ticket like flies out and it lands on the snow and those wolves come, that little shot that they have there is an exact duplicate of the one in the book. So, I mean, I guess that if you want to defend it artistically, that's the reason why they did it. But they could have just left it at the wolves looking at the train.
They could have
gone back.
Yeah, for real. I mean, there's a lot I think that you could cut to streamline the movie. But the whole ticket scene was probably one of them. I do like the hobo, even though he was an odd choice. I like it because it added mystery. It was almost like a Tom Bombadil kind of a thing,
Oh yeah.
You just don't really know exactly what he is or who he is, but somehow he's very important and he saves the day several times.
He's like, I mean, even the conductor like says, he was saved at one point, and I think the little girl, Hero Girl. Why don't these kids have names, by the way? But Hero Girl says it was an angel. And he was like, maybe. And I'm like, okay, so the hobo. I'm glad that they didn't include the whole thing about the hobo getting his head sheared off, because like I said, I don't know how my 4-year-old daughter would have reacted to that. But I kind of would, I prefer the mystery to it as opposed to the explanation. So
there's something to be said about just keeping a little mystery and mystique here and there. And I think there's a lot of that in Christmas as well. I mean, we don't really know how Santa does all this stuff. And so, I like that they did that, because it felt very Christmassy to me.
Well, it did, and and it's right in keeping with like if Charles Dickens and his ghosts and everything. I mean, Dickens was the one that started the whole tradition. Well, maybe he didn't start it, but he really sort of cemented it as part of the Christmas tradition. I mean, with telling ghost stories, and Polar Express I mean, the makers of the Polar Express, not the book itself, because there's no hobo in the book.
There's no hobo in the book.
No hobo in the book. But in the movie, I mean, they're sort of just picking up right where Charles Dickens left off. And so having that ghost there, I don't know if he's the ghost of Christmas past or whatever, but
could be.
he could be, but I mean, and even the hobo at one point, I mean, Scrooge comes in because he's the one that's holding the marionettes that's scaring Hero Boy. I wish we should just
we need to just I don't
name
know
him or something like that.
Well, I think the boy's voice, his name was Daryl.
Daryl.
Yeah. So
do you know who Daryl was? Daryl Sabera?
I don't know.
No. Oh, he was the little kid from Spy Kids. He was the boy in Spy Kids.
Okay. Yeah. Spy Kids was another one that I didn't really see.
Oh, okay.
And so I get it. That's cool. So he was probably relatively famous around this time.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
But Tom Hanks did like just about everything on this one.
Yeah. I mean, how many parts did he? Okay. So he did the motion capture for Hero Boy. He did the conductor. Yep. He did Santa. He was the hobo.
He was the hobo also, yeah.
He did the voice for this Scrooge thing.
And the narrator.
He was the father.
Yeah. Oh, the father too. Yeah.
He was the father. So what is that? Like 7 different parts?
Something like that. Yeah. I hope he earned. I mean, he definitely earned his paycheck there.
Well, you know what? He was one of the executive producers, so I think he was just trying to save himself some money or something.
Could be. Yeah. I'll just do it all.
Exactly.
And he did a good job.
Oh my gosh, he's amazing. But Tom Hanks. I mean, Tom Hanks for me can do no wrong. So I love Tom Hanks. So
I do too. What do they say? He's America's dad.
he really is. And a few years ago, I mean, when he was younger, if they were going to have remade It's a Wonderful Life, I think Tom Hanks would have been a perfect choice.
That's a great, yeah. So if Todd Killian's listening for his miscast, we have a good choice there.
Tom Hanks, yeah, there you go. I've always thought he's a little too old for it now, but boy, when he was in his 30s, he was like. I still consider him sort of like our generation's Jimmy Stewart. He's just this. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely see it, and you feel it in this movie because he's like I said, he does everything in it, and it's every single voice he tries. I mean, you can tell it's his voice, but he tries to give an affectation to and make it a separate character that is its own and can stand on its own.
Yeah.
And so I think he really succeeded there. The conductor character is so fun.
Tickets, please. And my favorite is when he grabs the mic and he goes, "Are there any passengers on the Polar Express who are in need of refreshment?" That kind of thing. I just
yes.
and then he's like singing and dancing to Hot Chocolate. So I mean, come on.
Yeah. Which one of these days I hope someone serves me hot chocolate like that.
That would be really cool, wouldn't it? That would be really cool.
I have a feeling if with my luck it would just make a huge mess all over the place, but it would be fun.
My daughter would have loved that. If I was when she was young, if I had tried to do that though, she probably would have just ended up like head to toe with hot chocolate all over her.
Same here.
It wouldn't have worked. So
and I guess we can call the girl is played by Nona Gay. So I guess we can call her Nona.
Nona.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so we don't have to say hero girl and hero boy.
Hero boy. Yeah. And we do have one kid who's actually named Billy. So,
yeah. And Know It All is the other one.
And Know It All. Yeah. Know It All. But the thing about, because Tom Hanks played hero boy, little Tom. And then Billy was actually played by Peter Scolari.
Oh,
motion
really?
capture. So we've got like a bosom buddies reunion in this movie.
It's
It's like,
underground,
you know,
an underground bosom buddies reunion.
exactly. When I found that out, I'm like, oh man, you know, I was like, maybe they're gonna get into drag and like, I don't know.
Some sort of shenanigans.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I found out that Peter Scolari did that. So,
And oh wow, Eddie Deezen from Grease and Grease 2
mm-hmm,
was the know-it-all.
mm-hmm, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I could see it.
I can definitely, I mean, because he was never one of my favorite characters in Grease and Grease 2.
No,
So
no. I mean, he wasn't that important really to the plot.
no,
Either
and
one.
he was sort of, I mean, yeah, he was just one of those irritating characters. And he just continues in the tradition. I don't even know what he's doing now. So
I have no idea. Hopefully he's still acting, I guess.
I was going to say, hopefully he's retired, but
well, maybe
okay.
that too. Yeah, maybe that's better. Oh man. The movie, it starts off the same way, you know, where it's Christmas Eve, and but like you said, the big difference is he's skeptical. He's starting already to not believe as much. And when he gets aboard, you know, they take the tickets, and Tom Hanks's conductor character, he does this like rapid fire hole punch, you know, ticket thing, which is really cool. And it says "believe" on it, on his ticket.
No, that doesn't come until the end. I think it. I
Was
think
it?
that.
Okay. Okay. For some reason, I thought it said it in the beginning. Okay, so I'm sorry about that.
I think that he just I think he hole punches just a couple things,
just a couple of letters,
ticket, like BE or something like that. I can't remember.
Okay,
what
maybe
it
that's
is.
what it was. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because that you're right, because he does LE on the know-it-all, and same thing with the girl
with Nona's.
Yeah, Nona.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what's her name? Nona. Yeah. But there's a lot of little touches that, because we have these new characters, and so we got to kind of flesh them out. And so I like that he makes Nona, you know, she's a leader, she's compassionate, she is a believer, and I think that's really cool, because I mean, there's a lot of temptation in when you add these characters that they're like, you know, two-dimensional characters, you know,
exactly,
at best. So I like that they really kind of fleshed him out. You know, Billy, he needs friends. You know, he's kind of a lonely boy, and so he eventually he gets friends at the end. You know, it all kind of calms down a bit.
Yeah, you know, and I really, like you said, I really love how they fleshed them out, and you have all these kind of different types of kids. I mean, little Tom, I guess I'm going to call him Little Tom.
That's fine. I'll take Little Tom.
Little Tom, I mean, he's not just a doubter. He's got like a whole scrapbook full of like things that says, you know, like Santa's on strike at the mall and stuff, and has a Life magazine or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, he's got all of this stuff. That's, I mean, I don't know. That's really taken Downing to like the nth degree, total nth degree.
Yes.
Like, let's have an entire scrapbook full of stuff.
Yeah, he's like gosh, what's his name from Zodiac? You know, when they're trying to catch the Zodiac killer.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, he's a little obsessive, which I you know, I appreciate. I really appreciate. I can get into that, but yeah. But and I love Billy. I mean, the kid from, I guess you can call him the wrong side of the tracks, because I mean, he's like, and just I think that Billy is sort of doubting too. He's not quite sure about it.
Well, he doesn't get on the train immediately. And so he misses his, I mean, I assume he misses his stop, you know, and that's why they have to pull the emergency brake in order to let him on. And of course, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and of course, Tom Hanks, you know, he starts getting after Little Tom, you know, the conductor, and like, well, we're on a tight schedule. Why, you know, don't ever pull this unless it's an emergency. And I like how Nona kind of stands up for him. She's like, well, no, he did it so that this little boy could get on. And I think that's like, it shows her character,
Yeah.
where a lot of times some writers just wouldn't have added that little touch there.
Mm-hmm. And she actually, for me, is one of my favorite characters in the
Me
whole
too.
movie.
Yeah.
I love her just because she sort of, for me, embodies sort of the whole spirit of Christmas. I mean,
Yes.
and she's trying to get everybody to that point where she is. And I mean, that song that she sings with Billy when they're at the back of the train and they've just crossed and I mean, that's just that. It gives me everything, all the feels that you'd want to feel at that moment. It's just a beautiful thing. And just Billy, who I feel, he's kind of a heartbreaking little character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the little rubber boots.
With his little rubber boots. And at one point he said, when they say, aren't you coming to see Santa? And he's like, Christmas just doesn't work out for me. And I'm like, oh,
yeah. Heartbreak. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, brother. Yeah. So yeah, I love little Nona.
so much so that when he finds his present, he doesn't want to let go of it. He's he's holding on to it tight. And so again, it just sets up that he's probably a little more unfortunate than the other children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely, as a dad, that definitely.
Exactly. It's like,
bad.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I do agree with you. All of those characters in there, even know-it-all kid, the irritating one, and I after watching it like many times this week and driving my family crazy with it, I've sort of become a little attached to know-it-all.
I get it. I do.
Yeah, I mean, he's sort of put in his place at the end. I mean, Santa kind of tells him, you need a little humility, and he's like, okay.
yeah, basically. And then he offers to help him find the bell later on.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, all of those characters eventually they have their redemptive moment.
Yeah, they all like legit have an arc,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Which again could be, is thrown by the wayside a lot of times. And so I think that's why this movie really works for me. Is they padded it out, they added some sequences. It might not be necessary, but the characters have a real arc and trajectory to their character and their development that I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, like you said, all the other characters that are on the train too, the ones that they added, because basically, I think in the book, all you have is a conductor. Mm-hmm. But you've got the conductor, you've got the hobo, you've got the two conductors, Smokey and Steamer. I don't know. I don't think that they've ever named the engineers. Yeah, who are strange in themselves.
His beard. I love his beard.
Yeah, I love, and the ZZ Top beard, and then he's like hanging out on the front of the train, trying to like screw in a light bulb. The other one, and he's like holding on. I'm like, how is that guy like? I mean, because the other guy is like what 350 pounds holding on to this beard. And I'm like, yeah, I love those conductors. I love those engineers. I love them. Yeah, I mean, all of the little touches that they put on is just amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's they really decided to make these characters something. Mm-hmm. So Billy gets on the train, and why does he sit in the back? He kind of just sits in his own little car.
Yeah, he like,
I guess it's just because he's a loner.
I think it is. I mean, even the know-it-all, I think when he says, "Oh, we're going to the other side of the tracks," so you kind of get this feeling like he's from a poorer side of the town,
right? And
then he gets on and then he's not going to get on, and then little Tom pulls the emergency brake,
right?
And Billy finally gets on, and then he kind of looks toward them and all the other kids, and then he just goes into the other direction and sits in the car that's empty behind them. And I don't know, maybe he's just used to other kids not accepting him because of his I don't know, social condition or economic condition or something like that. But he's just he's just this sad little character that just breaks my heart through the whole movie.
I agree. Yeah, I completely agree. But they bring him some hot chocolate.
Yeah.
which I really like. Again, Tom Hanks starts getting after him. Well, and they're like, well, no, he didn't get any. Or there's a boy there, and he's like, well, did he get any hot chocolate? And
well, let's bring it to him.
Exactly. Exactly.
Which is exactly what you would think Tom Hanks would say at that moment.
Yep, in real life, I bet he would too.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite things though is so after that happens, then the conductor comes through with the tickets, and he starts doing his little punching thing, and he punches LE on Know-It-All's ticket, and he's like, "What the heck does that mean?" Whatever.
That was good.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get into that a little later when it comes to gag me with a spoon. I'm telling you. But yeah, and so he punches out, and then of course the one ticket has been lost because she went to give the hot chocolate or whatever, and the ticket was on the seat, and little Tom grabbed it. Mm-hmm. Little Tom grabbed it and was going to go give it to him, and then lost it. It like blew out the window or something like that. And so, when Tom Hanks comes back and looks at little Nona and says, "Oh, I forgot to punch your ticket," and she's like, "I lost my ticket." And then little Tom comes up and says, "Oh, and no, you didn't lose it. I lost it. Here, you can have mine." And I love what Tom Hanks does there. The conductor grabs it and goes, "These tickets are not transferable." And so he takes little Nona, and he conducts her out of the car. And then, of course, Know-It-All has to say, "Well, you know what they're going to do? He's going to throw her off the end of the train, because they can't throw her off the front of the train, because then it would go under the wheels and it would slow us down." And I'm like, what is with this kid? It's just, that is just the most bizarre thing, that he's thinking that they're going to throw her off the train.
Yeah. I guess if you don't have a ticket, but
I mean, maybe in the 1920s when, people were hopping trains all the time, but I think
this isn't the Orient Express here.
Exactly. I mean, I think this is set in like 1955 or 6 or something like that. I don't know.
Could be. I mean, if it's about childhood and it was written in 85, I could see it being about, about
1955, something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think that they were throwing people off trains if they didn't have tickets in 1955.
I doubt it. Yeah.
I would hope not, although you never know, that hobo. I mean, it's just,
that's true. But you know what? I saw White Christmas. They just made him pay again.
Exactly. I did too. All they had to do was they had to just go sit in the restaurant car for the whole night.
Exactly.
That. So, I mean, gosh, the least they would have done is like made little Nona, I don't know, wash the cocoa cups or something.
Yeah. But I mean, but they're kids, so they don't know. They just think, they're just going to be thrown off. So they go towards the back of the train, the conductor and Nona, and little Tom is curious. And so he feels bad, and he goes after her. He sees Billy, and he's like, "Well, where are they?" And he kind of, tells him that they're up on top, which, why? I mean, I don't, this is part I never understood. I remember the first time I saw it, like, why are they going up on top? Like, why didn't they just go the other way through the, through the cars to the front?
I have no answer to that one. It's like, because they have to go that way. And then he finally finds her ticket. And so he's chasing after them. And then they have to go climb up on top as they're headed towards the North Pole in the Arctic in their pajamas. They're walking up on top of this. And this is one thing I've never gotten about this movie is it's so cold.
Yeah.
And yet everybody's like walking around in their pajamas and slippers and not like turning into like a blue icicle on the top of a train,
I guess it's the spirit of Christmas keeping them warm.
I'll buy that with little Nona. I'll buy that with little Nona and the conductor. But I agree with you. I never understood the whole thing of we're going to take her to the engine, but we're going to go to the end of the train first and then work our way forward on top of it.
Just the one thing that I never understood about it that always bugged me. Like I said, I like the movie. I like the movie a lot. I never understood that part. And I guess I know it's just to set up the set piece. But
it is, and I think it's also to introduce us to that hobo. I think that's the one reason why they do it, because that's where the hobo. Actually, we see the hobo one time before he meets him on top of the train, and that's when it's the little ticket sequence, because the ticket goes sailing through.
That's right. Yeah.
And you see the ticket like hit the hobo in the face, who the hobo is like riding underneath the train or something like that. So
he had to catch it somehow.
Whatever. So
to the top and started a fire.
So there's another reason for the ticket sequence, because we see the hobo. But I that's the only justification I can give to that whole climbing on top of the train. Is that you finally meet that hobo, which is, it's weird, but it's one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie.
It is. It's and like I said, there's something very mysterious and Tom Bombadil about it. I really am drawn to. I like that. I want to know more about it, but don't tell me about it. But I want to know more. That kind of back and forth, is what was going through my mind. But I like it because it's kind of sweet. He's telling him, oh, so you don't really believe. It's like, I get it. You don't want to be, what does he say, hornswoggled or
you don't want to be hornswoggled or boot, whatever he says. It's
yeah. And then he says, like, you want to see it for yourself, kind of a thing. And it's a way to connect with the kid, but also the adults, I think, because there's a lot of us like that as well. We don't want to be taken advantage of. We're guarding our hearts. We're trying to make sure that, that our defenses are up a lot of times, and we're very skeptical. And so I think not only does it speak to belief in Santa Claus, but it also speaks to, just belief in general and human nature.
But belief in mystery, I mean, we're in this, we're in this time where unless you have concrete proof, if it's not before your face, you can't put your fingers on it, you can't touch it, then it doesn't exist. Right. And so there in Chris von Allsburg, in his speech where he accepted the Caldecott for Polar Express, he said something like, I think that a world is much better where the possibility of Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster exists. Yeah. It's this whole thing of, it's a world that doesn't have that kind of mystery in it. I mean, I don't know if I want to live in a world like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I completely agree. It's just, there's more adventure. There's more magic. And yeah. And so
I mean, and we wouldn't have podcasts if it weren't for that. So come
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Yep. Well, especially yours that deals with literature.
Exactly. Well. Yeah. It's
there's so much there about the imagination.
There is, it's about the imagination. And, Amanda and I covered like 2 books of poetry. Although the last book of poetry was not that Christmassy, but that's a whole nother issue.
It happens sometimes.
It happens, but yeah, that whole scene with the hobo, it sort of like encapsulates what Christmas is all about. I mean, either you believe it and you accept it and the mystery of it, or, you don't. And what happens when you don't believe in it? Well, you sort of like disappear into the snow like the hobo does. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of creepy.
Yeah, I will agree with that as well.
It's very Infinity War, when Thanos did the snap, and he just kind of dusts.
There he goes.
Yep. So they realize they got to get to the front. They're moving super slow because, I mean, they're on top of a train in, a snowstorm, moving fast. So the hobo, he gets some skis and skis him to the front, essentially.
This hobo really comes equipped for every possible thing that's going to happen.
I mean, God forbid, but if I'm ever a hobo, I got to make sure I have it all too. So
make sure you pack some skis, okay, Jerry? Pack skis. You're gonna need them.
But we get another fantastic action sequence where they kind of ski and you can see they jump every time the train each car. So that was really cool. And then they're coming up to that, was it flat top
tunnel,
flat top
where
tunnel,
there's
yeah.
1 inch of clearance,
Yep. And so they got to make it to the engine before then. Mm-hmm. And so they realize they're going to be cutting it pretty close. And so the hobo tells him, all right, when I say jump, you jump. Mm-hmm. And so he does, and you just see the hobo kind of,
he goes back, and then and then he sort of hits the flat top tunnel and just like dissipates into snow or
yeah,
dust
exactly.
or whatever.
Yeah. And so luckily, of course, little Tom was able to fall into the stack of coal.
Right. Yeah.
Just in the nick of time.
And then he rolls down into the engine, and who's driving the train? Little Nona is
She's working off that ticket.
She put her to work.
Yeah. And he's flabbergasted. He's like, I thought they were going to throw you from the train.
She's like, no, it's really easy. This is that. If I was a kid and someone had brought me into the engine of a train and said, okay, you're going to drive this, and this is how you do it, and then just left, I think I would have been a little panicked.
Me too.
That would have been like putting someone in like the cockpit of an airplane and saying, I'm going to go and have dinner and you take over. I don't know.
You're going to be my co-pilot.
Exactly. Yeah. No.
Yeah. That was, but then again, you think it's the Polar Express. They're going to the North Pole. Yeah. So you imagine not much can go wrong. But
things have been going wrong the entire time.
Exactly.
Jerry.
That's true. But hopefully you'd think there'd be some sort of fail-safe. I don't know. I don't know. Santa's got to have some sort of magic to counteract bad driving.
That is the only way that train got to where it was supposed to be, is magic.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because there's the caribou in the road as well, so they have to stop the train.
Hundreds of thousands of caribou.
That's what the engineer says.
Yeah,
because they're gone to replace the light on the front of the train.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because I guess it burned out somehow. And
it's just this little light bulb. It's just like a 40-watt light bulb.
Yes, I love that. Like what?
Yeah, well, and then they have to throw the brake, and the caribou are there, and I love it. I mean, that's a really cool scene, because you see all those caribou, just like it literally looks like hundreds of thousands of caribou, and they have to figure out how they're going to get them off the track. And I love the solution for how they get them off the track.
Which is just pull, and I don't know which one is which.
I don't know which one,
But pull the bearded one's beard, and he howls and screams.
There it goes.
It kind of sounds like a caribou.
Exactly. And the caribou calls back. I hope it's not like a mating call that he's making.
That's a whole other story there.
That is a whole other storyline,
That's a true crime right there.
But I mean, at least the caribou moves.
Although I do like when they're trying to stop the train, there's a little interaction between little Tom and Nona where she says, this one's the brake, and he's like, are you sure? And he kind of starts to make her doubt herself. Right. But I like how he ends up having faith in her anyway, and he does pull the handle that she pointed out.
Yeah.
So again, another little touch that I thought really worked for their characters, because it shows that he's starting to believe other people.
And he's, and she's giving that to him. She's the one that's like instilling that. And Jerry, I have to ask you, did you notice, and I don't know, are you a big fan of the Back to the Future films?
Yes, I love Back to the Future.
So at the beginning of the movie, for that, when he's looking through the his little scrapbook of doubt, he has that thing about the Santas going on a strike. And I think it's called the Twin Oaks Mall, which is where Marty McFly and Doc Brown were. And then, if you notice, in the engine of the Polar Express, there's actually a flux capacitor in there.
That I missed. I completely missed that. I'm gonna have to go watch it again now.
There is. I mean, it's really but it is. There's a flux capacitor there, which totally makes sense, because I mean, when Tom Hanks picks them up, it's 5 to midnight or something like that. And that whole time that they're going there, it's 5 to midnight. So, I mean, they're using a flux capacitor
Which
to get to the.
I may or may not be doing later. But yeah, that's cool. I like that. I mean, Santa's got to have time travel somehow. I mean, how else is he going to get, in 36 hours? It just doesn't.
It's a flux capacitor. I'm telling you.
That's awesome.
So I mean, Zemeckis like put all of these little touches in the movie that are. I mean, if you look for them, and I mean, they're just. That's the kind of thing that I love in a movie, and Robert Zemeckis is really, really good at that. Really good at that.
Right? Yeah, that's so cool. So they clear the caribou, and they get back on their way. And I think this is where there's a whole sequence with like was it a break? No, what was it? It was something. Oh, something breaks, and they need a pin.
Yeah, they're Tom Hanks, conductor Tom Hanks, little Tom, and little Nona are still on the front of the engine for some reason. I don't know why. And Smokey and Steamer get the
they started going again.
Going. Yep. And then they're approaching like some kind of gulch or something where there's the steepest grade that goes down. And Tom Hanks like yells back, slow down. And whatever one it is, let's make a decision here. Smokey is the bigger one and Steamer is the littler one.
Okay.
So Smokey tries to pull down and like breaks the throttle or something like that. The little pin comes out.
It's just a little pin, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like this little cotter pin or whatever it is, and it just goes sailing through the air. And of course, you get all this 3D, stuff that Zemeckis loves. And then Smokey ends up like swallowing it.
He does, yeah.
And when he swallowed it, I'm like, oh my God, that's gonna like perforate his intestine or something.
I was thinking that too.
Oh my God,
that's exactly what I thought. I was like, oh, that's not gonna be good when it passes.
That's not gonna be good for him. Of course, but it comes out eventually. It comes back up. And here's the other thing. So the train like is screaming down this hill. Yeah. And then comes to this lake of ice where the water is like frozen over the tracks.
Over the tracks, yeah.
Right. And so the train is like going like this, and it's got to be like whatever, a 5-ton train or whatever. There's like an engine plus however many cars there were.
Right.
And it's just screaming along there. And then the cotter pin flies out of Smokey's mouth and then goes sailing out, and you see it, and then it lands like sticks into the ice. Now, the train hasn't really made the lake break up at all, but this little cotter pin that hits the ice is the thing that makes the whole lake start falling apart. I don't know.
I'll buy it. I'll buy it.
Oh, okay. You know what? If there's a flux capacitor involved,
might as well. Yeah,
might as well.
We're on board. No pun intended.
Yeah, I love that whole sequence of the whole roller coaster down the hill and across the lake.
I remember the first time I saw it, and I love roller coasters. Mm-hmm. So I remember when I saw it thinking, I want to go on that roller coaster. Like, that looks fun.
If the movie had been possibly a bigger hit when it first came out, I could have seen like one of the movie studios, like Universal or something, having a Polar Express ride. And I would still pay to go on a Polar Express ride.
Me too. I would too. I'm surprised no one's done it yet.
I know, because the movie has sort of gained popularity as since it's been released. So, I mean, I would totally jump on the Polar Express for a little trip across the lake.
As long as there's no spinning, I think I'll be okay.
Yeah. That
let's
wouldn't
stay on the railway. Yeah.
Stay on the railway. We can go up and down, but please let's not spin the train around. That's one of the things that we love doing up here in the UP in the wintertime. I'm from the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. So in the wintertime, we get a lot of snow. And when I was a teenager back in the 1980s, actually, nice. one of the best things to do when you're with your friends is going into a parking lot and you like gun the engine and start spinning your wheel so the car starts spinning like that. And that was like, I come from a very small town, so that was one of the pastimes.
Nice. I understand. You gotta have fun however way you can sometimes. You couldn't just look up, play on your phone. It's
well, anybody that from the UP that heard me say that, I guarantee you they have done it at one point in their lives. So
eventually they use a hairpin to replace the little pin, and they're able to continue, and they eventually get to the North Pole.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they're told that Santa's going to give out the first gift of Christmas, and it's going to be one of them.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Know-It-All thinks that I'm going to get the first gift of Christmas because he's been such a great kid all along.
Yeah. But they notice that little Billy is still in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And so they go get him, and that's when they accidentally unhook the car.
Yeah. Well, little Tom just
he just can't catch a break, man.
He really can't. He's like jumps up and he hits this thing, and I'm like, oh, that's not going to be good.
Yep. And so then they have their own, again, little shenanigans ensuing there. It's just, oh my gosh,
it's the strangest North Pole, but I love the North Pole.
It is a strange North Pole. I mean, it's not what you normally think of when you see, I mean, especially after movies like the Santa Claus, in that North Pole, or even Elf. It's definitely not quite what you picture, at least not what I picture when I think of the North Pole.
It's like an industrial North Pole. That's what it looks like to me. And I mean, and it's totally, I mean, that's exactly what Chris Van Allsburg designed it. Because I mean, he said, I read an interview where he said, well, if there's a place that's going to make millions and millions of toys, that's what it's going to have to be. And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah. I mean, that checks out. They somehow managed to get to like one of those railway, what are they called, like turnstiles, or
the turnstile, where it's
like
spinning.
That.
Although, let me tell you, that would have made me so sick spinning on something like that. Oh my god.
Me too. I don't mind roller coasters, the up and down, but when it's in circles, that gets me. And so they actually get off the car and they crawl on like the tracks. I mean, it's it's only a few inches thick. And of course, they slip a little bit and they're balancing, and but they go all the way across to the other side there. And I remember thinking, just like, okay, someone's gonna fall, and Santa's gonna save him. I mean, it doesn't happen, but I remember expecting it. Like, okay, who's gonna fall? What's gonna happen? And is little Tom gonna save Billy? And
well, I mean, it is like this tiny railing, and little Nona gets on there and goes, "Come on, let's go!" And I'm like. I would have been more like the kid from Stand By Me, where I'm like crawling along, holding on.
Me too. Yep. Nice reference there. But they kind of work their way through, I guess, the elf command center, if you want to call it, I guess.
That little General Elf is a little frightening to me.
The elves, I think the elves in general were frightening.
They're terrifying. Yeah, when we get to gag me with a spoon, let me tell you, that's where I'm going. So,
yeah, the design was to me was odd, but it does kind of line up with what what Chris Van Allsburg does.
Van Allsburg does, absolutely. I mean, they look exactly like it. Like I said, this whole movie really replicates the atmosphere that Chris Van Allsburg created in the book.
Yeah, the lighting, the colors, everything is, and they did a great job with it. So somehow they go down a slide and wind up on like the big stack of presents where they discover, and this is where I'm not sure what happens, but somehow Know-It-All is there.
Yeah. When did he actually, because he had to have been following them, but where and how?
I have no idea. It's definitely a plot hole, but they just needed, they needed him to be there.
But they're in there and Billy is like they're trying to get Billy out, and then suddenly these hands come up like in this, like what that reminds. Yeah, like from Carrie, at the end of Carrie, where Carrie's hands come out and pull her down. I'm like, oh my God, that just like, it's terrifying. But of course it ends up being, irritating little know-it-all kid.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. But this is where they see like their presents, and Billy like just won't let go of his present.
Yeah.
But the elves find him, and they're like, "Oh no, come on, it's okay. You can let it go," and they coax him into doing it.
Yeah.
But again, it was like a heartbreak there, because
he just doesn't want to give it up.
No, because he doesn't get much, I guess. So.
Exactly, and he still doesn't have enough faith to think, I'm going to eventually get this present. I need to hold on to it. That just, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. But Santa arrives. One of the bells from the reindeer gets loose, and little Tom picks it up. Right?
It picks it up, and he shakes it, and he can't hear it. Did you notice when he shook it? Because I was watching it many times today, and I listened to that. When he shakes it, what you hear, actually, if you listen really closely, is you hear the sound is like this whisper of doubter, 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 doubter.
Oh no, I didn't hear that.
You got to listen to it.
But I didn't have the volume up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like pointing this out to my wife, and she's like, "Okay, would you please just stop? Stop, please." I'm like, "That is so cool. Come on." And she's like,
"That is cool."
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah. It is. Thank you, Jerry.
I think it's very cool.
Okay, thank you.
I'm with you. But he like, Santa comes, talks to all of them, and he's like, "I think we're going to go with you here," And he picks little Tom to get the first gift, and so he comes up on it, gets him up on his lap, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah,
because that's the typical what you think of Santa doing kind of thing. And he tells him what he wants and gives him the bell, and it's great.
Yeah. And the whole thing about the bell being like the true, this is what Christmas is all about. You believe in that. I mean, yeah. And actually, when the Polar Express was sold as a book, they sold it with a bell. Nice. I mean, so every copy of the Polar Express came with like a little sleigh bell that the child got. So. Yeah, wow. I still got my sleigh bell, and I still hear it, Jerry. I can still hear it. So
I'm sure you can. I mean, you have a Christmas podcast. I'm sure you
exactly.
So he puts it in his pocket, and they go back, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, let's see the bell," and they realize that it's the pocket that was torn. There's a hole in it.
Yeah,
which we see earlier in the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And so he's like devastated. Just like in the book. So this part plays out like the book.
And know-it-all is, give him credit. He wants to go out and help him find that bell.
Yeah.
But the train starts moving.
It starts moving. And of course, he's just the little boy. I mean, little Tom's heartbroken, which I would be too. That's like the one thing he wanted, from Santa. And so it cuts to, he gets home, cuts to Christmas morning. His sister Sarah wakes him up. It's funny how Sarah has a name, but little Tom doesn't.
Little Tom, Hero Boy and Sarah,
Yeah.
I wonder if his sister said, "Hey, Hero Boy, wake up! It's time Santa." No,
right?
I don't know if I as a sibling, I don't know if I would ever call one of my brothers or sisters Hero Boy or Hero Girl.
No. I don't even know if I actually said their name on Christmas morning. I think I just shook him and was like, "Hey, wake up, it's Christmas."
Exactly. It's like, get out of bed. Come on.
They go downstairs. There's all the presents, and then they find the one last box. And this is again where the book and the movie are similar. One last box. It's kind of small, and it's to little Tom, and he opens it up, and it's the bell. And there's the little note, that you fix that hole in your pocket. Yep. I found this in the seat.
Find this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket,
Mr. C.
Yeah, Mr. C.
Yeah.
And then the parents, of course.
Yeah.
Don't know what is that, and she says it's a bell from Santa Claus, and then the mother reaches down and picks it up. Of course, can't hear it,
right?
And then the father takes it and he goes, "Oh, that's too bad, it's broken. Sorry about that, sport," and hands it back to him.
Yeah.
And then he shakes it again, and both he and his sister can hear it. So Yeah.
Yeah, and then it ends the same way. How throughout the years, everybody
Mm,
stopped hearing it. Even my sister couldn't hear it
yep.
anymore, but it still rings for me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
magical,
I
magical.
love that ending. That is like, you want to talk about Linus moments or Christmas feels. I mean, that's it. That is totally it. I
Yeah,
love that. I love it. Yeah. And then that's the whole message of the book and the movie. It's
yeah,
that whole shaking the bell and being able to and believing, even if it's not in front of your eyes, even if you have no proof for it, just believing. And that's what it's all about.
yeah. Well, and I mean, so much so that even the song
Oh
"Believe,"
yeah.
was
Yeah,
written for the
and I
movie.
love that song.
It's a good song. Yeah.
The music in this movie I love too. Alan
Alan
Silvestri.
Silvestri, yeah,
Oh
one of
my
my
gosh.
favorites. I mean, he's done just about everything: Predator, Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Robert Zemeckis loves using him.
Yeah.
Of course, he did the Avengers most
Mm-hmm.
recently, so he's definitely has a style that I like. A lot of brass,
Mm-hmm.
that fanfare. But in this one, it's the score is actually quite subtle. I found, and
Yeah,
it really fit.
and he uses, it feels like he uses voices a lot in
Yes.
the and which I love. I mean, when I hear that music, the theme, when they're pulling into the North Pole and the voices and everything, I mean, it gives me goosebumps every time I hear it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing was very well done, and
yeah.
it was a good adaptation of the book.
It really was. People just couldn't get past that uncanny valley,
Yeah,
unfortunately. I mean, even the critics, I mean, I read some of the things and they were really nasty about the animation.
yeah.
But, the animation didn't really, I mean, for what it was at the time, I thought it was really, really amazing animation. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're doing a whole movie like that,
mm,
it's kind of hard when you're trying to make it realistic. So like when you see something like The Incredibles or
yeah,
some of the Pixar stuff, I mean, you can tell that it's cartoony. But
yeah,
with this one, when they tried to make it a little more,
realistic.
realistic, I think that's where it got a little creepy for some folks.
Well, Chris Van Allsburg, when he sold the rights to the movie to Tom Hanks and Robert Zemeckis, he told them that the only way he sold it was that he said, "I don't want an animated movie,"
Oh, wow.
and he said, "I don't want it animated." And I think this was the
Oops.
compromise. Well, I think this was the compromise that they made. That they
Yeah.
said, "We'll do this motion capture." And then Chris Van Allsburg said, "Okay, fine." And well, in fact, Chris Van Allsburg is one of the executive producers.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he was like dead set against the Polar Express being an animated film.
I mean, I could see that because I mean, if you look at his paintings in the actual book,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, they're paintings, but there is something that's a little more realistic too.
Yeah, yeah,
So I mean, I get it. Yeah,
yeah,
I definitely get it.
absolutely. And I mean, so I think that was sort of Robert. I mean, but Robert Zemeckis, I think, was really getting into the motion capture stuff at the time anyway.
Yeah.
So I mean, he was like, "Perfect! I got the best idea for how to do this," and he sold Van Allsburg on it. So,
Well, Lord of the Rings had come out by that time, and
mm-hmm.
Gollum, Andy Serkis did Gollum, and I mean, so yeah, I mean, motion capture was like pretty big.
Why wasn't Andy Serkis in the Polar Express? That would have been really
Right?
cool. They should have found something for him to do.
Oh, I'm sure they could have. Yeah. Oh man. But Marty, it does make me wonder. Like, what would you say? And you might have already said it. I suspect. But what would you say would be your happiest moment or
Oh,
memory of the
of
the Polar
this.
Express? Yeah.
Well, it's the movie and the book together because I mean my happiest moment is with my daughter. This was like her Christmas book. This is what we read every Christmas. I've read it to her since I read it to her when she was 20 days old.
Wow.
And we just kept on reading it. And then when the movie came out, I remember she would come home from school, kindergarten and preschool. And as soon as she walked through that door, she would want the Polar Express. And of course,
Nice.
I would get her like, cocoa or something like that. And
Hmm.
then she would literally fall asleep on my chest watching the Polar Express. So,
Nice.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
come
That's
on.
everything there. Yeah.
That's everything. That's everything. Well, what about you, Jerry? Do you have a happiest moment?
Well, because this one kind of skipped my childhood, I don't have a very nostalgic, powerful moment with it. So I'm gonna have to go with like a moment from the actual, from the actual movie, and it would be at when he opens up the, he opens up the present, and it's the bell there, and he's listening to it, and it's just so magical. I think for me that's the moment that just gets me.
It gets you, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched it 5 times tonight, and every time I that got to that point, I still got choked up every time it happened. So
yep, definitely. It's like, oh, right in the feels.
Exactly.
Oh man, yeah. So that would probably be mine. But now we come to my favorite part of the show, which is a little segment I like to call "Gag Me with the Spoon." So this is where we do our best impression of our least favorite part of the of the movie. And there's a few lines here and there for me, but as a guest, I'll let you go first. And,
all right,
just kind of set it up a little bit for us.
Okay, well, I'm gonna do 2 of them. Okay, I've got 2 "Gag Me with the Spoons that both involve the elves.
Okay,
because I find the elves incredibly creepy.
They are creepy, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So one of them is with the elf general who just he's got this like little Napoleon Bonaparte hat on and stuff like that, and he's talking about one of the elves tells him that it's the last package, and and they're using a special wrapping, a candy striped red with a number 7 holly green bow, and the elf general goes like this. Okay, I'm gonna try this. A number 7 bow? What when we're this close to Christmas? What are they thinking of down there? Are they Meshuggah? What's going on? It's like, okay, Meshuggah? Really? Meshuggah. Okay. That part always gets me. I'm like, Meshuggah. I just makes me shake my head.
I like that. That was good. Yeah.
All right. But the one part that always sort of creeps me out a little bit is when Billy is coming out of the bag, the Santa's bag, and the elf is there and is trying to get the present, give him the present, and the elf goes, "I'll take care of this." And Billy goes, And he goes, "It's in good hands. Trust me." I'm like,
yeah, that was creepy. I remember hearing
it's like trust me, really? You sound like a chain smoking 80-year-old elf, and I'm gonna trust you.
Got to stay warm in the North Pole, man.
And if all he had to do was add "my precious" after it, it would have been perfect.
Yeah. Well, that was really good. I'm totally gonna lose this one. I mean, I lose them all, but for sure this one. So this was actually, you mentioned it earlier when they're talking about the 5 minutes to midnight, and the conductor's, he says it's 5 minutes to midnight, and know it all. And I'm going to try my best know it all here. He goes, excuse me. He goes, "Hey, what gives? It was 5 minutes to midnight 4 minutes ago." It's terrible.
That was pretty good, actually. That was really good. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I went in between the elves and Know It All, because Know It All almost, there's a few lines in there, and that's one of them that you just said that just, yeah. But, I had to go with the creepy elf trying to get little Billy to trust him.
It was that's a good choice. Oh man. But I do have to ask, G.I. Joe, they taught us that knowing is half the battle. What do you think the other half is?
If knowing is half the battle, the other half is not accepting cups of coffee from ghost hobos.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. He was soaking his socks in that coffee, so don't do it.
That's where all the flavor is.
I guess so. He wrings it out. So
yeah, that was that's a good one. That's better than mine. Mine was so knowing is half the battle. The other half is making sure that your pajamas don't have holes when you're visiting Santa.
Yeah. I that was on my list too. But I'm telling you, that cup of coffee from the hobo that did it for me.
That was a clincher there. Oh man, Marty, it's been so much fun talking about the Polar Express with you. What do you want to plug? Tell me about your show.
All right. Yeah. Our podcast is called Lit for Christmas. It's available on all the normal places where you'll find your podcast. And it's me and my friend Amanda. And we imbibe a little bit prior to talking. And then we talk about some Christmas lit. And for May, we're talking about the book by Gene Shepherd, In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash, which is what a Christmas Story is based on. So that's going to be coming up, and Amanda and I have no idea what drink Amanda is going to be. I know that Gene Shepherd was quite the drinker, so I'm a little worried about that. Amanda was talking about like a drink with like 3 kinds of liquor in it, and I'm oh yeah. So this might not be a pretty one. Let me tell you, people.
Let's definitely check this one out.
Yeah, check this one out. It'll drop May 24th. We drop all of our episodes on the 24th of every month. So yeah.
Nice. And where can they find you on social media?
They can find us. Well, you know what? We don't have a whole lot of social media yet. I mean, we're only like 4 episodes deep. So we certainly do post everything in on the Tis the Podcast group. So we'll do that. And I got to talk to Amanda. We need to start like some kind of Instagram or something to publicize it a little better. But yeah.
Right on. Yeah, definitely check it out. I mean, it's genius. Lit for Christmas literature, and also we're lit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Such a great concept. How did you why did you choose that? I'm just curious.
Well, Amanda and I have known each other for like close to 30 years, and nice. we're both survivors of poetry MFA programs. So gotcha. we're both poets, and we love talking about books. And frequently when we Zoom or talk with each other, we're drinking at the same time. And and I thought, and I've always wanted to do a Christmas podcast, because I've been listening to Christmas podcasts for probably 4 or 5 years now. And I just suggested this to Amanda. And she was like, yeah, that sounds like fun. And that's all I needed. And so I came up with this concept, and the thing that I love about it is at the end, my favorite part of the whole thing is actually sitting down and writing something based on that. That's my favorite part, is coming up with a poem at the end of every podcast. They're not great poems sometimes, because you have to remember that we're about 3 drinks or 4 drinks deep by the time we get to that point. But that's my favorite part. I love doing that.
Right on. Definitely check them out. So much fun. Marty, thanks again. I really appreciate it. It was I had a blast here.
Thank you, Jerry. And again, the best thing about this is that my 12-year-old son is going to think I'm really cool now because I'm on your podcast.
Right on. I'll take it.
All right.
And on that note, I'll end it by saying, though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe. So check us out on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're still able to hear the Silver Bell jingle every year, leave us a review on iTunes. Not only does it help us reach more people, but you also get a free sticker. Now, don't forget to vote. Later, dudes.
What do 2 poets who are Christmas geeks do when they get together? They get drunk and argue about Yuletide lit. It's time to get lit for Christmas. Join us as we open the liquor cabinet, grab a book off the shelf, and have a little boozy conversation about what warms our chestnuts and makes us holly and jolly. Find out the best screwdriver to Scrooge with. Get the recipe for Gift of the Magi mojitos. Enjoy a little peppermint patty Polar Express. Everyone's welcome at this party. It's time to do some Jingle Bell Jello shots and talk about the great, and maybe not so great, works of Christmas literature. Hurry up. The fireplace is roaring, and Bing Crosby's crooning. We're 2 drinks in, and the spirits of Christmas past, present, and future are flowing. Grab a cup of cheer and find a place on the couch. It is time to get lit for Christmas.